Almost every organization I talk to is planning on implementing generative artificial intelligence. I'm curious, what's your take on it? What do you think in general about the technology, and how do you think it will change the future of work, if at all?
Yeah, certainly a lot of conversation about generative AI and a lot of excitement. And it's one of the reasons why I've chosen to, and I love being in the world of technology, is that we're always kind of, at the cutting edge of what is possible. And I think that's very true here. Sometimes I think about generative AI in the context of other big technology disruptions. You go back to the cotton gin, or you think about, the personal computer or the mobile device, or even the public cloud, which, until a couple of minutes ago, the public cloud, was the big thing that was the big disruptive technology. I think generative AI is the next, right? Potentially, really big. I'm an optimist. I don't believe in some of the fear around generative AI and all the bad things that could happen. Being an optimist, I look at our species and say, look, we've always been making tools. And every tool we've made can be used for good or it can be used for bad, but for the most part, we've got it right. And that's why we've been a pretty successful, species. I think we'll be very mindful about some of the generative AI risks, and I'm pretty confident that we will get them right because we are thinking very much about them. To me, what's very interesting in the generative AI discussion is what is the impact it's going to have on work or workers or jobs or things like that? And then, is this technology going to make us more human or less human? I actually think that there will be changes to how all of us work. I've been playing with different generative AI models myself and building applications and things like that, and I've been impressed by how quickly I've been able to get some things done. And through my experiences, I'm finding that it's enabling me to be more human, more thoughtful, more creative, because like so many technologies, it's reduced the burden on some of the undifferentiated human things, and it's created more capacity for me to do the stuff that humans need to do. And I think we're going to see that across every field that this touches. I do think it's going to be change. I'll never forget when I was in high school, the number one thing my mother thought that I needed to do from a skill perspective was learn how to type. I took a typing class. But that came and went. Right, and I think we will go through the change. We will adapt. Many of us will acquire new skills, and I think that's always been true and will continue to be true. And I think we'll end up in a pretty exciting place.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I see it as a force multiplier, as you do, right? Just like internet, just like the cloud. This is just maybe perhaps a bigger one.
Yeah.
And the internet and the cloud required us to change. It required us to learn new skills. It made our lives generally better, right? So I think I share your optimism for the most part.
Yeah.
Now, one of the things that employees are concerned about specifically is, is this technology going to be able to take my job, right? How would you advise leaders to kind of address those concerns when they come up?
I think openly, right? If people who have those concerns, I think we all responsibly need to acknowledge those concerns. I think we all need to do work, in our organizations to really think about the potential and be able to understand, what is the potential for some of the changes that we'll see in our organizations. But most important is I think we need to bring all of our employees along in those conversations, in that journey. I don't think it's one person in a room deciding how is this technology going to be implemented in our firm, or what are the implications for this going to be in our firm. I think we need to invite as many people as we can into the excitement around these technologies, to try things, to experiment, to see what it could be, so that they can be a part of the change, so the change doesn't happen to them, but it happens with them, and in many cases, for them. I think if we do that right, if we engage people in the right way, I think we'll end up in a good spot. No doubt, there will be some places where the technology can get broadly adopted. Probably it's going to be a little while from now, not right away, where there can be some significant changes to how work gets done, which ultimately could impact the workforce. But again, in those cases, if we support our employees to learn the new skills of how they use this technology or how we go get other things done in our respective firms, I think we'll like where we end up.
Yeah, I agree. We saw the same thing with cloud itself, right?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people saying, well, I'm a data center operator. What about my job? And well, my answer to that is there's another better job for you here, right? And that ended up being true. It's just, of course, there's going to be some effort required to learn these new skills. It's kind of fun to learn these new skills, if you ask me.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, I mean, building something that customers can actually use is so much more fulfilling, going back to your point on purpose, than just kind of being farther away from the customer, kind of running cables, stacking servers, that sort of thing. I feel like generative AI is kind of a very similar situation there, right? Embrace it, learn the skills. Your jobs probably end up being more fun, and like you said, maybe feel more human.
I think that's right. And also a lot of the different economic models and forecasts that I've seen, like kind of looking at this question of how does this technology potentially impact the way work gets done, have been looking at the efficiency side of the equation or the cost side of the equation, not at the creation side of the equation. And that's where I think things are going to get very interesting. Like, what are the new industries? What are the new ways of interacting as humans? What are all the new modalities of operating in our society that we don't have today, that we can't even think of today, that once we have this technology pervasive will be new arenas, for us to all be in. And that's going to be the really exciting part of how this could potentially really increase the growth and the opportunities that all of us have.
Such a great point. All of the things that we haven't even thought of yet today, and the new jobs that will be created in the near future because of this.
That's right.
Yeah. So what could leaders be doing to prepare their organizations for generative AI?
So it's interesting. It goes back to something we talked earlier about how do we develop, generally and doing. I can tell you, and I am in such a wonderful spot, and I'm grateful for it to be every day working with some of the world's greatest technologists, around these ideas. So I am soaked in the opportunity and what it's all about and the vocabulary and the decisions we make. But I've learned more about generative AI by going in and building models. And especially now that Amazon Bedrock is generally available, what a better time, right, for all of us to get our hands on the keys. That's where I've had the big ahas. It's become real for me. And I'm an HR leader, right? I'm not a technologist necessarily. And so that has been how I've gotten my mind around it. And that's what I encourage everyone to do. Let's go play. Let's go have some fun. And let's go try to make sense out of it for ourselves.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. One thing I've observed is that education tends to alleviate fear, especially with new emerging technology. We saw this with the cloud, right? You have traditional IT teams that maybe were fearful in the beginning of cloud. You send them to training, you give them opportunity to build, to use that training, and all of a sudden they're not fearful anymore.
That's right.
They understand what the technology is capable. They can see how they can use it to do good, and it's just an amazing shift. So I would say exactly what you said. Train your teams, expose them to technology, play with it, be a builder, and that fear can turn to excitement very, very quickly.
I think that's right. That's certainly what I've experienced, and others as well.